Okay, so let's now take a look at our listener's question, which this week comes from Stephen Cushley. Cush is a good pal of ours and a big supporter of the show, and thanks to him for sending in the question this week. His dad, John Cushley, will be well known to listeners of a certain age, and he spent 7 years at Celtic as backup centre-half to Billy McNeill over the 60s before leaving to join West Ham. So, big Celtic family, and let's hear Cush's question now.
Hi Tino, it's Cush here. Long time listener to the show since you started with Myth back in the COVID season, and really enjoy what you're doing. Certainly a much easier listen now, not just because you've brought in Paddy and James, but obviously because of what the manager has been doing to the team. My question is about Alistair Johnston, and specifically how well he's adjusted to Celtic's system under Ange. And crucially, do you think he'll make us more robust for the challenges we'll face in Europe next season and beyond? Thanks, Tino.
Welcome, Cush. So thanks for the question. James, on you go, Myth. Listen, you can't be putting in this wrong section of the show. You've missed the boat.
Bugger.
You've missed the boat.
Am I right, but?
I can't tell you that.
Oh, come on.
You're not beaver.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, I wasn't even thinking.
Yeah.
Well, I was doing my nutting, but man, I was doing my nutting. Oh, charge too slow as well. Right, sorry.
Moving on. James, Alistair Johnston, he's one of several players who really showed what he's all about at Hampden, and in truth he's actually been doing it since day one at Celtic, and it's been great to see. So what's your initial response to Cush's question?
I've liked him since we first saw him, Johnston. I just think he's got a bit of that kind of like just real steely determination about him, you know, a bit of kind of Terminator guy, just he's got his path and nothing's getting in his way. That one where he kind of roughed off a challenge yesterday, roughed off another one, pinged the ball to Haksabanovic, you know, just outstanding. I think he's going to be a big player for Celtic, and I want to see obviously Ralston rotating with that to make sure they can both last the season. But yeah, Johnston seems to have that real single-mindedness that Ange has got to love in a player. Yeah,
if he's a real competitor, isn't he? And he just seems to have embraced everything about Celtic so far. How impressed have you been?
Well, even in watching him at the World Cup, you seen him performances. Canada were a bit of a surprise package in terms of the way they went about their games, and just this guy bombing up and down the right, you know, a bit of all action. At that time there was the gloom of the persistent links with Juranovic going away to practically every club in Europe, and it got to such a point where you were thinking, right, okay, Juranovic seems to be really showcasing himself. So when we were strongly linked with Johnston, I was quite chuffed, because I thought, well, I can see what they're trying to do here. They're trying to get a young, athletic full back in to replace him, and it's been nothing but good things. There's probably still that wee element of the final third. I'm not sure necessarily Juranovic was overtly creative when he was in there. He'd done his bit naturally, but there's nothing about Johnston that says to me he can't achieve the same sort of things. The most notable thing for me, that even going back to his debut at Ibrox, was his willingness to mix it, the sheer amount of effort that he put in. There was one run where he cross field where he managed to catch Sakala to snuff out an attack, and Sakala's, you know, no slouch. Yeah. So I'd seen a few of the MLS fans post on Twitter that this is what you love about Alistair Johnston. It's like he's got a turbojet as an engine. Yeah. He's just absolutely committed and non-stop. And ultimately, what a compliment that is to the style that Ange wants to play. He wants that type of player in. And you mentioned the example I was just going to give, James, around that passage of play that creates the Haksabanovic opening, which he was very unlucky with, by the way. It's a great save for McGregor with his foot. The fact that he's ridden off the first challenge and then just shrugged off the second. You know, most guys in modern football would have been probably down rolling about that, trying to get a player, but he stayed on his feet and pinged a cracking pass. So it speaks a lot about his mindset as well. And we've said it so many times, character, the type of character that he is. Celtic themselves have been bigging up the fact he's loving his celebrations and things like that. Just endears players to the fans even more.
Yeah, I think he's very quickly become a fan's favourite. So let's hear a bit from the man himself. He was speaking at Celtic Park last night after returning with the League Cup trophy.
This one's for you guys. The passion at this club, it runs so deep, and you can see it everywhere. The support we had there today was special. Everyone staying, an hour after the final whistle to cheer on every little celebration was pretty cool. So, we're super excited to bring this one home. And again, This is our first trophy of the year. It's not our last either.
Cheer for anything.
And it's nice in February to already have one in the trophy case. We plan on adding some more. So yeah, stick with us and we'll keep the good times rolling.
James, he absolutely loves it, doesn't he?
He does. I mean, there's a bit of that matchmaking going on with a lot of players that Ange signed, and Johnson certainly won. Just a wee bit at the end of that interview, they said,
where the guys go, yes.
That's just after that bit. They said, it was the compere said, so first trophy in a Celtic jersey. He says, first trophy ever.
Yeah.
So now I think that's really interesting. He's come in, won a trophy early doors. There's 2 more on the roster, as he might say. But it gives him that kind of like, another reason to come to a team like Celtic and to stay at a team like Celtic. Guys have maybe not won stuff and can go in and do it under Ange.
If it takes me perfectly to my next question, we spoke on the post-match about just how important it was for guys like Johnston, Moy, Haksabanovic, and Iwata to pick up their first trophy for Celtic, and obviously Johnson was speaking just there about that. What impact do you think that'll have on these guys specifically across the rest of the season and beyond?
Well, I think it's great for their mentality. Oh, the roster, I like that. Because it makes them feel part of it. So there's always that thing when they come in, the team are already successful, they've already won a double. It now makes they feel part of that. They feel like they've achieved for the club. I think that's really, really important. Just that as they strive to go and make sure that the league's won, they feel they have contributed to the team's success. So very interesting that Iwata went on yesterday. I think that says a lot about where Ange sees him as being a real pinnacle and focal point in the team for the season to come. The trust's there. You mentioned there it must be a hard one for somebody like Turnbull to take. He would normally have been the change, but it's proven to be the right change because, again, we've come home with the trophy.
Yeah,
it'd be a different change under Turnbull as well. It's a much more controlling change with Iwata.
When we seen it come up, I said to James at the time, I said, I think he's going to bring Iwata on here and bump McGregor and O'Reilly up, and so it proved to be the case. And I think he'll utilise that moving forward with a view to then doing the Iwata and McGregor thing in Europe. So interesting to see, but it's clear that, as I said there, I think Iwata and various guys have got the trust of Ange already, and he knows he can put him in there. Going back to Alistair Johnston specifically, I'm going to look here just at his Celtic stats since he arrived in the January window. So since the start of January, Celtic have played 12 games. Johnson started and completed the full 90 minutes in 11 of them. The only one he missed out on was the League Cup semi-final against Kilmarnock, where Juranovic started. Of those 11 games, Celtic have drawn 1 and won the other 10, and he's been an absolute cornerstone of a defence who have conceded just 5 goals in those 11 games, including the League Cup final. Ange has gone with the exact same back four of Johnson, Carter-Vickers, Starfelt and Taylor for the last 6 games now, and as I say, he's got the absolute trust of Ange Postecoglou, and he's yet to put a foot wrong.
It's so critical to the success of the team because we need an athletic backline to be able to sustain the tempo that we play at, and he's just fitted in so seamlessly. Mad when you think that Juranovic still played in the semi-final.
I know,
just when you said that there,
because it was late.
But to be fair, he'd done a job for us right to the end. As did Giakoumakis, because he actually scored in that game as well. So, but Johnson, it's almost like a dream signing for us, because on signing him, you would have wanted what he has produced, and he's done it. If you'd said when we signed him he's going to play 90 minutes in 11 out of 12 games and he's going to win a trophy at the end of it, happy days.
Yeah. James, in terms of his style of play specifically, I think he's more naturally aggressive and robust and defence minded than Juranovic. Spoken about what Juranovic offers moving forward, and obviously he played his part in terms of free kicks, penalties and corners at this, at different times. Do you think that's a side of the game that Johnson will add moving forward under Ange? He's done his job 100% defensively, but we've yet to see a first goal for Celtic, which I think is not far away. You think he'll add that to his game?
To a degree, to a great degree. I think he will. You can see in parts you're seeing more attacking from him, more kind of creation from him, but he's not as creative a player as Juranovic, I would say. I think Juranovic is quite easy on the eyes as a footballer goes. I don't see Johnson scoring Panenkas in European games, for example. You just don't see that.
Not yet.
But you don't see that in his makeup. Juranovic had that wee bit of kind of mad creator about him, and I thought he was a great player. But I'm happy to shave off a wee bit of creation for the robustness he gives us at the back. Juranovic was very, very good at right back. I think Johnson is, in this early state, Evans, I think he's a better right back than Juranovic. And if he adds that, a bit of flair and a bit of creativity going forward, because he's certainly got the pace for it. You know, he's no problem getting up and down the line. So it'll become part of his game, and it's already becoming part of his game. We'll see more of it between now and the end of the season, no doubt.
Yeah, and in terms of that comparison myth between Johnston and Juranovic, do you think Johnston is going to be a better fit for what we're looking to achieve in Europe?
There's almost been a bit of an offset, as you say, with maybe slightly more creativity for someone that's more robust in the right back position. But by signing someone of Johnston's profile, you've still got that time for him to develop. So you would hope, by the nature of making a signing in January, you're effectively giving them that 6 month bedding in period to the system, to get used to the environment, all that type of thing. So the hope is that there's still progress left in the fullback. So you don't want to cut off 12 games in, what age is he, 24? 24. Still some natural progression to come there, and you trust the manager to bring that. So to answer your question, yes, I think he is someone who can help us achieve what we need to achieve in Europe, because bear in mind, he's been a starting right back at a World Cup. That in itself is a huge achievement for a footballer, for a Canadian team which don't regularly qualify for major tournaments. You would assume that he's been a major part in that, because he's somebody that within that Canada team for me stood out, and that was before he was our player.
He's given a lot of responsibility early in his career with that. He's got a lot of caps, isn't he?
33.
Yeah, so for his age, he's got a lot of caps there, a lot of responsibility for that age. He's taken it in his stride, and he's taken that into his career at Celtic.
And that's the thing, you know, Miff's talked about his profile there, James. 33 caps, as I mentioned. He's also got 1 goal for Canada. He started all 3 games in the World Cup against Croatia, Belgium and Morocco, I think it was. And they, I think to our benefit, Canada play a style that's not too dissimilar to Ange's. They go with inverted fullbacks, you know, which is a big plus, of course. But he is an individual. He doesn't lack confidence or self-belief. And as Miff says, 24, he's got progression to come.
Yeah, he likes a blether as well. You know, that feeds, you know, that speaks of his confidence that he can speak for himself, and he can talk about football in a brand new environment from day one. He was like that. You know, some of the Celtic podcasters say it's murder. You ask him one question, he answers 10, and you've maybe got your question ready to answer, and he's already used it up. So he's got that confidence both on and off the park, and it, you know, further feeds into Ange's signing people, not players. You know, he wants people who are confident, can fit the culture and play the game.
Yeah. Fashion Sakala likes a blether too. It doesn't bode well for.
Depends what you say.
Folk.
The other thing that springs to my mind in terms of Johnston is, I can remember reading a report on Twitter when he was asked at a press conference at the World Cup about the links with Celtic, and he could barely contain himself.
His phone was blowing up.
He was just so chuffed at the fact that he'd been, like, you know, he looked genuinely made up. And again, that's just continued on, and you can see he's absolutely thriving and loving being part of it.
Yeah. Miff, where do you think Tony Ralston fits into things here? So he's certainly proven his worth to Celtic with last year's performances, and he's been unlucky with injuries, you know, over the last couple of months. Do you think he's now firmly the backup to Johnston, or do you think they'll vie for position at times? How do you think it'll play?
Well, I think the way that we play is physically demanding, so I can't, especially that fullback role. To my mind, you mentioned Bernabei earlier. I think we still need cover for him. We need somebody that can play in that role. But I think Ralston is natural. I think it'll be more as cover, but at least, you know, and Ralston, to his credit, has raised his profile with the Celtic fans. So I think we would all see Ralston's name in the team sheet, or even on the subs bench. You're quite chuffed at the fact that, you know, he's there, because he's very dependable, very reliable. You've no qualms when. I don't think you're necessarily any weaker as such with Ralston starting, because what he's proven is in this system, he'll give you goals and he'll give you assists. Yeah,
there's no doubt. So it'll be interesting to see when he's back fully fit. He's been on the bench the last few games. Not featured much, but I think he'll get his window over the next few games. James, I think overall in terms of Alistair Johnston, absolutely fair to say that he's slotted in almost perfectly to life at Celtic. But just to try and answer the question for Kush, and I put it to Miff slightly earlier on there, do you think we'll be better equipped in Europe with somebody like that in at fullback?
I think overall you have to say it's the robustness that, you know,
robusticity.
We've shown that in the games in Europe we can do all the stuff going forward, but we couldn't keep the door shut at the back. You know, that's been a problem, and I think this points to the fact that we're looking at a wee bit more solidity at the back there. So, and with a guy who's got pace, so it's not limiting yourself going forward. He can get back and cover that. So yeah, I think he certainly improves on that conundrum. There's other work to be done, no doubt, but he's a piece in the puzzle.
possibly a way to look at that question is, does Johnston take Mudryk out of the game?
Yeah,
I think
so.
Mudryk could still be travelling.
So,
I think first and foremost he's defence minded. He's got the attacking stuff going forward, but it's a great debate because he's a guy who's, I think, very quickly, as I say, 11 games in or so, he's become a fan's favourite very, very quickly. And the bigger picture stuff is that it feels like he's been here a long, long time, and that says a lot about him. So another great question, lots to debate, and thanks again to Kush for sending that one in. If you want to submit your question to us for discussion on any future shows, then you can do so in one of three ways. Number one, you can leave a voicemail directly on our website via the microphone icon on the bottom right of any page of the site. Secondly, you can send us a message on social media at Twitter, Instagram or on Facebook. And thirdly, you can email me directly on tino@thecelticexchange.com.